Hello and welcome to this week's MTV, where this week's word is balance. I was recently asked by a woman, how do I balance family and career, business, all of those things, and probably things she either sees through Facebook or just from interacting. And as I was chatting with her, I stopped and I said, you know what, I need to share this on MTV. Now, before I give you this very simple process that I walked through with her, I want you to know that in no way have I mastered balance. Yes, I do work towards it, but one thing I have learned is that the word balance can be very deceiving. Now, in chemistry, super clear and simple. I would teach my students how to balance an equation, for example, making sure that there were an equal number of elements on one side as on the other. A simple approach to doing that, and it was very process-oriented. In life, there are so many factors that are involved. And so what I want to share with you would be two simple things that come, I believe, prior to balance being realized in our life. I think culturally, we focus too much on balance and not enough on first our priorities. We need to set priorities, clear priorities in our life. And what are those priorities going to be? For me, it's God, then family, and then career. And so out of those priorities, then I determine what is important or what's going to happen in my life. I want to put God first, and how does that look? And I want to have my family second, and what does that look like? And third, my career. And so priorities are very, very important. The second thing out of priorities, then, I establish boundaries in my life. What do I mean? A boundary is a limit. A boundary says, I will not go beyond this. The way I think of it is a boundary gives us space in our life in order to live out our priorities. I want to say that one more time. A boundary provides space in our life for us to live out our priority. For example, if I want to place God first in my priorities, then I must have boundaries for when I'm going to spend time with God. For me, that's first thing in the morning. And so a boundary that I have is that I do not take or return phone calls before 9 a.m. Why? Because that time, especially when the kids are in school, once they leave to go to school, that is the time that I have set aside for my time with God to fulfill that priority in my life. I need to have that boundary. Another example, if I'm going to place my family in proper priority, when we decide we're going to watch a television program or we're going to watch a movie or we're going to do something, then a boundary that I have in place is not looking at my phone or not constantly taking phone calls or answering texts or sending texts. That's a boundary that I need to have established so that my kids or Fred, my husband, know that they are important. So we have to have boundaries, a limit where we say we're not going to go beyond that. A boundary that as a family we have agreed upon is that our boys are involved in one major extra outside or connected to school activity so that our life is not overrun by going to and from activities. Why? Because that gives us space to live out our priorities. Now, I want to just stop here and say, do I fail in actually living by my boundaries? You bet. Have I been on the phone texting or emailing when I should not be? Absolutely. And what I've learned to do is, for example, say to my boys, please forgive me. I'm going to work on that. Yes, we will fail. The key is we're working towards that. So let me put this all together. When we have established clear priorities in our life, and then we set boundaries that we work to live by, what I have found is that balance is the result that we most likely see in our life. So I want to encourage you. Do you feel out of balance? Do you feel overwhelmed? Do you feel emotional all the time because you feel like there are not enough hours in the day? Maybe that's because your life is not in balance. And my encouragement to you is, rather than hearing a bunch of tips on how to balance your life, I'm going to encourage you to give consideration to what are your priorities. Write them down. Talk with your family about them, and then set some clear boundaries, some limits that will help to guide you. Because then what will happen is, as decisions come to you, as people ask you to do things, to go places, then you will filter those through your priorities, and you will allow your boundaries to provide some guidelines so that you know when to say no and when it is okay to say yes. So I want to challenge you this week. Consider your priorities. Set some clear boundaries, and then choose to live life by those priorities, adhering to those boundaries. And I believe that you also can have balance in your life. I leave you with Isaiah 26:3, a passage of scripture that's an encouragement to me anytime I begin to feel overwhelmed, because one, I know being overwhelmed is not of the Lord, and that means that I've allowed my life to get out of balance. It says that he whose mind is stayed on him, he will keep in perfect peace. God will keep my mind in perfect peace when I choose to set my mind on him. And so I challenge you to do the same thing. Have a great week, and I'll see you back here for our next MTV.